Hello, Mr. Bagus. I'm Marvela Divaria from Group 5 from Class 2 Software Engineering 4. And at this time, I will try to answer the question that you gave me. And the question for me is, you want me to explain by line the pseudocode that contained in our ISOs. And our ISOs is talking about the ribbon carb. So on the screen, as you can see, in our and the name is Rabin underscore CPU, and there are variable result T capital N and M, and to give explanation for T and P and M. The T is the text that we look in. For example, is the text I want to give an example is A B A B A C, and the P with capital means the pattern that we look for in the text we use, in the text we look in. So, for example, the pattern is BAB, and we want to look for the pattern BAB in the text that I already mentioned previously. And for the N is the text length, and M is the pattern length. And additional explanation for T and P. So in here, in the pseudocode, we tried to match the pattern P starting from every possible position in the text we look in. For its starting position, we keep iterating over both the pattern P and the text T, and we try to match them. If we reach a match, we increase the answer, but otherwise, if we break the loop on the first mismatch, we find. And let's take a look back in our pseudocode. So after we already declare the function name and the variable, we start the program. We declare hx equals 0 and hy equals 0. And we start the for looping in here, where I value is equals with 0, and we check the I must be less than M. And because the value of I is 0, so it is correct, because in here, I want to give a value example for M with 1. So because the value of I is 0, so it's correct, because 0 is less than 1. And because it's correct, we next to the plus I, where we plus 1 the value of I, where the value of I is 0. So now the value of I is 0 plus 1 means equals with 1. We check again. The value of I is much less than M, because the M is 1 and the value of I now is 1. So 1 is not less than 1, so it's incorrect. It is false. So we start the formula, where the formula is hx, and the hx must be less than 1 plus p equals with I. And the value of I in the previous, we can see the I equals with 0. So the value of P now is 0. And we end the formula and we start again the for loop, where the X equals with 0. And we check the X must be less than the N minus M. And in this case, we know that the value of M is 1. And I want to give the value of N is 2, for example. So the X must be less than N minus M, where N minus M is 2 minus 1 equals with 1. So the value of X must be less than 1. And the X value is 0, so it's correct. And then we next to the X plus plus, where the value of X must be plus with 1. So the value of X is 0, and we plus 1. So the value of X now is 1. And we check again, the X must be less than N minus M or less than 1. And it is incorrect now, because the X value now is 1. So we start again another for loop on the next line. So there is for loop for hy equals I, and it must be equals 0. So in the previous line, we can see that the value of I is 0, and it's correct, right? Because the hy equals I, and it's equals 0. And then now we check, the I must be less than M, and the value of M is 1. So the I must be less than M. The I must be less than 1, and it's correct. And because it's correct, we move again to plus plus I, where I must be plus with 1, and the I value now is I plus 1, where the value of I now is 1. So it's incorrect right now because the I is not less than M and the M is 1. So we start the formula on the next line where HY, where there is HY, and HY must be less than 1. And then plus T, where T equals with I plus X, where the value of I is 0 and the value of X is 0. So T equals with 0. And next we end the formula, and now we compare hash and match pattern. So in here we start there is if we type if, and in if the hx must be equals with a hy, as you can see in the previous line, where the hx is 0 and the hy is also 0, so it's correct. And for the compare, we can use the variable p, t plus x and m, where p in the previous p equals with I, and I is 0, so p is 0. T plus x is also 0 because t is I plus x and I plus x is 0. So t is 0 and x is also 0, and m is also 0. So for the compare, it's correct because it must be equals 0. And next we start the print, where print match at equals point x. And next is there is a formula here, the result x. If the result x, it must be true. So the answer is true. And then we end all program, and don't forget to return result to the main program. So that is the answer from me to answer your question. I hope it will answer the question that you want me to explain about the pseudocode that we use in our ISIS. I'm very sorry if there is any kind of mistake in my explanation. Thank you, Mr. Bagus.
Hello, Mr. Bagus. My name is Muhammad Nisha Kamil from Group 5, Class 2, Software Engineering 4. At this time, I will answer your question about is there any other method to detect the plagiarism? Well, actually, there's one called frequent item set analysis, also known as market basket analysis or affinity analysis, can be used for plagiarism detection. It works by treating documents as items and sentences in all the documents as baskets. Then it tries to find documents that appear together in multiple baskets. In the book mining of massive datasets, it is pointed out that one or two sentences in common among documents is already a good indicator of plagiarism in practice. So yes, there is any other way to detect plagiarism other than the Rabin-Karp algorithm method. Thank you.
Hello, Mr. Bagus. I am Muhammad Bagas Prasetyo from Group 5, Class 2, Software Engineer 4. At this time, I will answer your question about how to read the plagiarism based on the formula that contained in your essence. Okay, first of all, we go to the parsing stage with the K-gram method. For example, we take the text want anything with the value of K is 4, and the letter will produce like this. Next step is hashing. I will take an example like this. The first hash in the word then. Then we find the ASCII value per letter. Then we just enter it into the hash formula. For the node, the letter K in the brackets is the value of K in Kgrams. And for the next stage, I will use this example. Based on the example, it will compare to text. First text is strategi pasar langkah pertama laku identifikasi pasar, and the second text is Memulai strategi pasar langkah pelaku identifikasi pasar. To compare, I will use the formula of the similarity coefficient. And for the calculation, it will be like this. 2 is the value of k, it's a coefficient. 32 is the value of c, which means number of equal kgrams of text being compared. 42 is the value of O, which is the sum of kgrams in text 1. And 40 is the value of B, which is the sum of kgrams in text 2. Based on this calculation, it can be seen that the percentage of similarity between the two documents, the two texts, is 78.05%. Thank you.